In a restless world, where comfort lulls the soul into silence, one question echoes louder than all. What are we truly capable of? Most of us live within invisible walls, built not by our bodies but by our minds. We stop when it hurts, retreat when it burns, and call it enough. But what if enough is only the beginning? Welcome, dear listener, to Guide to Reads. Today we open the pages of a book that does not simply tell a story, but dares us to redefine our own. Can't Hurt Me, by David Goggins. This is not just the tale of a Navy SEAL or an endurance athlete. It is the story of a man who faced abuse, racism, and crushing self-doubt, and decided to make pain his teacher, not his enemy. A man who shows us that within suffering lies the seed of transformation, and that the mind, once mastered, can turn impossibility into destiny. So, let us walk into the fire of his journey, not to admire it from afar, but to draw from it the wisdom that may ignite our own. 1. The power of the mind over the body. There comes a moment when the body begins to rebel. The legs tremble, the chest burns, the heart begs for rest. And in that moment, most of us stop. We convince ourselves we have reached the end. But David Goggins reveals a hidden truth. At that breaking point, you are not at the end. You are only at 40% of your true capacity. Imagine that. 60% of your strength, your endurance, your potential, still untouched, waiting in silence. It is not the body that gives up first. It is the mind. The mind whispers, "Enough, stop, you cannot go further." And we believe it, because we confuse discomfort with limitation. But here lies the power of Goggins' lesson. When you choose to push beyond that whisper, when you refuse to accept the mind's excuses, you step into a realm where growth begins. Pain becomes less a wall and more a door, one that opens to reserves of strength you never thought were yours. And isn't life filled with these very moments? When we walk away from a dream because the effort feels unbearable. When we abandon our goals at the first sting of failure. How many times have we surrendered, not because we lacked the strength, but because our mind convinced us we had none left? The wisdom is clear. The true battlefield is not in the muscles or the lungs, but in the space between our thoughts. Master the mind, and the body will follow. Master the mind, and you will find that what once felt impossible is simply a veil. Thin, fragile, waiting to be torn away. So the next time life presses you to the edge, remember, you are not at your limit. You are only at 40%. Beyond the pain lies the rest of your strength, and beyond that strength, the life you are meant to live. 2. Callousing the mind. Look at the hands of a worker or the feet of a runner. You'll see calluses, rough layers formed by repeated friction, by constant challenge. They are not signs of weakness, but of strength, proof that the body has adapted to hardship. David Goggins tells us the mind can be trained in the same way. Just as the skin grows tougher with every wound, the mind too can be calloused through struggle. Every time we step willingly into discomfort, every time we resist the urge to quit, we add another layer of resilience to our spirit. But most of us live avoiding this very friction. We seek comfort in warm routines, in easy tasks, in lives that never test the edges of our endurance. And so our minds remain soft, sensitive to the smallest strike, fragile before the slightest storm. Imagine instead a life where each obstacle is not an enemy, but a trainer. Where each failure is not a scar, but a strengthening layer. This is what Goggins calls callousing the mind, to walk into pain deliberately, not to suffer for suffering's sake, but to grow immune to its threats. And is this not the secret of every great story we admire? The artist who endures countless rejections before creating a masterpiece. The athlete who trains in rain and in pain until victory tastes inevitable. The parent who sacrifices daily, building unseen strength for the sake of their children. Their lives remind us of a profound truth. Growth and comfort do not walk the same path. If we shield ourselves from every hardship, we also shield ourselves from our own becoming. So the next time life offers you a trial, pause before running away. Perhaps it is not there to break you, but to build you. Every struggle is a chance to callous the mind, to prepare it for storms greater than today's, to make it unshakable tomorrow. Because in the end, the strongest among us are not those who never fall, but those who have fallen 1,000 times and risen each time harder, sharper, and more unbreakable than before. 3. The accountability mirror. Every morning, David Goggins stood before his mirror. But this was no ordinary ritual. It wasn't about fixing his hair or adjusting his clothes. It was about stripping away every illusion. He called it the accountability mirror. In that reflection, there were no excuses, no masks, no soft lies to ease the conscience. Just brutal honesty. If he was overweight, he told himself the truth. If he had failed, he faced it head on. On the glass, he placed sticky notes with his goals, his flaws, and the raw words he needed to hear. And each day he returned to that mirror, not to hide from reality, but to confront it until change was inevitable. Why does this matter for us? Because most of us live behind layers of gentle self-deception. We tell ourselves we'll start tomorrow, that we're doing well enough, that life's obstacles are to blame for our stagnation. But change cannot grow in soil watered by excuses. Transformation begins only when we dare to face ourselves without filters. Ask yourself, what would your mirror say if it could speak? Would it praise your discipline or reveal the goals you've buried in the corners of your heart? Would it reflect progress or promises left undone? The accountability mirror is not about shame. It is about liberation. It frees us from the prison of denial, showing us not only who we are, but who we can still become. For the truth, though heavy, is the only foundation strong enough to build a new life upon. So tomorrow morning, when you stand before your own reflection, don't just look at the surface. Look into your eyes. Confront the truth. And ask yourself, am I living as the person I was meant to be? Because only when you dare to answer honestly, can you begin the journey toward who you truly are. 4. Embracing the pain. Most of us spend our lives running from pain. We numb it with distraction, hide from it with comfort, or curse it as an enemy. But David Goggins turns this truth upside down. Pain, he says, is not the enemy. It is the teacher. For Goggins, suffering became a compass. Every time life pushed him into the fire, whether it was grueling Navy SEAL training, endless miles on the pavement, or the silent weight of trauma, he refused to flee. Instead, he leaned into it. He discovered that on the far side of pain lies transformation, and that the very moments that hurt the most are the ones that carve us into who we were meant to be. Think of your own life. The heartbreaks that reshaped your priorities, the failures that taught you humility, the struggles that forced you to grow. In the moment, they felt unbearable. Yet looking back, aren't they the milestones that defined you? To embrace pain is not to glorify suffering, but to recognize its hidden gift. Just as fire tempers steel, hardship tempers the human spirit. Without it, our strength remains untested, our potential unseen. The question then is not, how do I avoid pain, but rather, how do I use it? Each challenge, each setback is an invitation to rise. When you stop fearing pain, it loses its power over you. When you welcome it as a companion, it becomes your greatest ally. And perhaps that is the quiet secret of life. Comfort may bring ease, but only struggle brings growth. To live fully is not to walk an easy road, but to walk the difficult one with courage, knowing that every step through pain is a step toward the person you were destined to become. 5. The cookie jar. When the nights grew long and the road felt endless, when his body begged him to quit and his mind teetered on the edge of surrender, David Goggins reached into something he called the cookie jar. But these were not cookies of sugar and sweetness. They were memories, hard-earned victories, past battles he had already won. Each cookie was a reminder that he had faced pain before and endured, that he had been tested by life's fire and had not been consumed. We all need such a jar. Because in our darkest hours, the mind plays tricks. It convinces us we are weak, that we have no proof of strength, that the struggle before us is impossible. Yet when we reach into our cookie jar, we pull out evidence to the contrary. The exams we once thought we'd fail but passed. The heartbreak we thought would break us but didn't. The days we believed we couldn't go on and yet we did. Think for a moment, what cookies fill your jar? Have you ever stopped to honor the battles you've already survived? Too often we forget them, letting fear erase the victories etched into our past. But when remembered, they become fuel, sweet reminders that if we conquered yesterday, we can conquer today. The cookie jar is not nostalgia. It is ammunition. It is the voice that says, you've been here before. You endured. You grew stronger. And you will do it again. So when the weight of life presses heavy on your shoulders, pause. Reach back into your own jar. Hold that victory in your mind, like a torch. Because sometimes the greatest strength comes not from what lies ahead, but from the quiet proof of what lies behind. 6. Defying the odds. By every measure, David Goggins should not have become who he is. He was a boy scarred by abuse, silenced by fear, and crushed by poverty. He struggled with learning, carried the weight of racism, and nearly surrendered to a life of invisibility. The odds were written against him long before he could write his own story, and yet, that is the very story he rewrote. From a child who could not run a single mile, to a man who completed some of the most punishing endurance races in the world. From a boy drowning in self-doubt to a Navy SEAL, an Air Force tactical air controller, and an inspiration to millions. How did he do it? Not by wishing for a lighter burden, but by building a stronger back. Not by waiting for the odds to shift, but by daring to confront them head-on. And here lies the wisdom for us. We often believe our circumstances are chains too heavy to break. We look at the cards life has dealt us and accept them as destiny. But Goggins' life is proof that destiny is not inherited, it is forged. To defy the odds is not to live without hardship, but to choose not to be defined by it. It is to say, I may come from pain, but I will not remain in pain. I may walk through darkness, but I will not let it dim the fire within me. So ask yourself, what odds are you surrendering to? What story have you accepted as unchangeable? Perhaps, like Goggins, your greatest victory lies not in the ease of your path, but in your refusal to let the path decide who you are. Because if a man broken in every way could rise to such heights, then maybe, just maybe, there is more strength sleeping inside you than you've ever dared to believe. If we pull the thread through David Goggins' life, a simple pattern appears. The mind is the battleground, pain is the tutor, and truth is the tool that carves a new self. He teaches us to find the hidden 60% inside the moment we think we're done, to callous the mind by choosing the hard road, to stand in front of the accountability mirror until excuses fall away, to collect proof of our strength in a cookie jar for the nights when courage grows thin, and finally, to refuse the quiet tyranny of circumstance and defy the odds written for us. This is not a manual for endless suffering. It is an invitation, a stern, compassionate call to meet life honestly. The real work is not spectacular. It is unglamorous. One honest note on a mirror, one cold run when you would rather sleep. One morning you choose discomfort because it trains you to be anything but fragile. Over time, these small acts accumulate like steel wound into a cable. You become someone who can carry more than you ever imagined. So here are 3 gentle practices from his life that you can start with tomorrow. 1. The mirror moment. Before the day begins, say the truth aloud. Your goal, your weakness, the excuse you must stop using. Put it where you will see it. Repeat it until it no longer sounds optional. 2. The cookie jar habit. Keep a running list. Not of trophies, but of tiny survival victories. Read one when doubt arrives. Let the past prove you to the present. 3. The 40% challenge. When you feel finished, do one more rep, walk one more block, study for 15 more minutes. Train yourself to question the whisper that says, enough. A book cannot lift you. A book can, however, supply the match. Goggins hands you the flame and asks you to carry it into your own dark rooms. You may stumble. You may burn your fingers. But with each step, the light grows steadier, and with that light, so does your life. In every book there is wisdom, in every wisdom there is a flash, and in every flash, a message waiting to be told. If this episode struck a chord, share it with someone who needs to hear that they are more than their limits. Try one of the 3 practices for a week and tell us what changed. Stay with us. There are more lights to follow on this road. Until next time, walk toward the edge of your comfort, not away from it. One small, courageous step at a time.